Yo, what's good, YouTube? Coming back at yo with another video. Today we're gonna talk about 5 realistic trades that the Boston Celtics can do to get rid of Kemba Walker and that humongous contract. As you can see on my screen, I'm gonna be talking about some of the trades that were suggested. I made some of my own trades here. As you can see on the screen, I got on this you have to make the money work, so this is why some fans of certain teams might say, "Oh, we're getting robbed and all this," but you have to make the money work. You see, I added up all the money, trade successful, so you know it'll go through. The first trade we got is Kemba Walker being sent to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Steve Mikhailuk, however you say his name, Theo Maledon, and Al Horford. Now, I feel like this is a decent trade for both teams. OKC gets to get rid of that huge contract by Al Horford, sending him back to the Celtics. And Theo Maledon is a pretty decent young player that they have, but I think they don't mind getting rid of him because they have odds to get the #1 pick this year. So they could end up getting Cade Cunningham anyways, which plays point guard. So I don't think they really care about getting rid of him. And then Steve is obviously like sort of a veteran now, so they really don't care about getting rid of him either. So I feel like this is a good trade for both sides because Kemba Walker gets to go to a rebuilding team, average his points, maybe still contend for like the 8th seed, depending on if OKC gets the first pick or not. And OKC still gets to rebuild with a young team and a veteran point guard. Kemba Walker at 100%, obviously, we know what he could do. He averaged 19.3 this year, but usually in Charlotte, he was averaging 25 points, 23 points almost every year consistently. So, and then for the Celtics, this is a good trade because they finally get a center that can shoot, play defense, and pass. Obviously, we know what Al Horford does. He was on the team for like, 4 years or 5 years. Theo Maledon's a pretty good young point guard. He could be our point guard for the future with Peyton Pritchard. And then Steve Mikhailuk obviously is a great shooter. He played for Detroit. He's a great shooter. He could come off the bench, put up some points, make some shots. I think that's a pretty even trade for both sides. But it's not good enough to make the Celtics a championship contender, but that's besides the point. If you want to get rid of Kemba's contract, I feel like this is one of the better trades. And you get a center, which we're in dire need of. Alright, let's move on to the next trade. The next trade I got is Kemba Walker being sent to the Chicago Bulls for Troy Brown Jr., Al-Farouq Aminu, Setoramsky, Thaddeus Young, and Kobe White for Kemba Walker and Grant Williams. Now, Bulls fans, before you start commenting, we would never give up Kobe White. We wouldn't do this. This is a trash trade. Bro, you got to understand, Bulls are trying to contend right now, and they're in need of a point guard, like, desperately. So I feel like giving up Kobe White, I don't think they would mind that, to be honest. If Kemba Walker plays 100%, just look at that big three. Kemba Walker, Zach LaVine, and Vucevic. They could be at least the 6th seed with that team. Maybe even 5th, you never know. But if Kemba Walker stays healthy, that's the question. And Kobe White, obviously, I would love to get him on the Celtics. He's a great young point guard. He can shoot, he can pass, he can dribble. He's like 6'4". He's way bigger than Kemba. Troy Brown Jr. is a pretty decent young player too. He was playing pretty good on Washington, but they traded him. Al-Farouq Aminu, obviously, he's like a solid veteran. He played for Portland. He was a solid veteran. Setoramsky is a pretty good point guard to come off the bench. Could also play shooting guard. He's like 6'7". He could play a small forward even. Thaddeus Young is a great veteran too to have. He could probably start with Tatum, Brown, and all them. And then obviously for the Bulls, they get a scoring, playmaking point guard that they needed. He can score points in bunches. They get a solid defender in Grant Williams. and they get rid of pretty much $42 million. I mean, they're still taking on 36 mil, but they're basically getting rid of like, what is it, 6 mil around there. So I feel like they could sign another player with that, or maybe try to flip Kemba. But I don't know. They'll probably just keep him. But I think this is another good trade that was suggested. They've been suggesting that the Bulls might trade Kobe White, so I feel like Celtics would be a candidate for that, especially for Kemba. All right, let's move on to the next trade. The next trade I got is Kemba Walker being sent to the Los Angeles Lakers for Dennis Schroeder, KCP, Ben McLemore, McKinney, and Drummond. Now, I think Drummond is a free agent, so it might have to be some type of sign-and trade or something. But the way they show on here, I had to make the money work, so that's why I added KCP, McLemore, and McKinney. But if it was real life, I think it would only be probably Drummond and maybe Kuzma or Shooter. But if I had to choose, I would choose this trade. I think if the Lakers got Kemba, they wouldn't want Shooter too, so I think they would just trade him. But is he a free agent too? I think he might be, to be honest. But on here, it doesn't show him as a free agent, so let's just say he's not a free agent. I think this would be the best trade possible. If he is a free agent, let me know in the comments. If he was a free agent, I would say it would be Drummond and Kuzma only included in this, and it would probably be a sign-and trade with Drummond. But for this trade, it benefits both sides. We get, obviously, a solid point guard and shooter. He can score. He can play defense. He can pass a little bit. KCP is a solid shooter when he's actually, like, playing 100%. Obviously, in the playoffs this year, he wasn't shooting great, but he's a solid shooter when he's actually 100%. He played great in the finals last year. Ben McLemore, another good shooter. Drummond, obviously, we know what he does. He rebounds the ball and plays solid defense. McKinney's all right. He's just like a filler player to make the money work. But yeah, I think this is a solid trade for both teams, though. Let me know what y'all think. Lakers get a third option for AD and LeBron. So if AD goes down, still got Kemba Walker, which is a solid player. He could average maybe like 20 to 23 points. I don't know. I think it would be a good trade for both teams because this year, I don't know, that team just didn't work. The chemistry wasn't good. It just didn't add up. All right, let's move on to the next trade. Now, this is the trade everybody's been talking about, but I added more stuff to it to make it better and more fair for both teams. I mean, either way, I think it's fair, but Tim Hardaway is a free agent. So I think if they do a sign-and trade, they should sign and trade with us, and then we give them Thompson. So, see, as you can see, it's successful. So, Kemba Walker gets traded to the Dallas Mavericks for Kristaps Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr. And obviously Tristan Thompson too. Forgot to mention him. But this is a solid trade for the Celtics. This is actually a pretty great trade. You get rid of Kemba and Thompson, two players that didn't have the greatest experience in Boston. Obviously, Tristan Thompson, he started playing better towards the end of the year, but he was really disappointing this season. We expected him to be better. His defense wasn't that great. His offense was mediocre. Kemba, same thing. Defense was trash. Offense was mediocre. And Porzingis obviously had a terrible playoff series, but he played good in the regular season. He averaged like 20 points and 9 rebounds. I feel like if we did this trade, I feel like Porzingis would finally get a new beginning. He'll be able to be the third option on a team. He won't be the number one option or the number two, so there'll be less pressure on him to score. And I feel like if he came to Boston, he would get more looks because he would be able to post up. I know for sure they would run post-ups for him, unlike the Mavericks did. He would be able to do pick and pops with Tatum and Brown. He would just get way more chances to score. And then Tim Hardaway obviously is a great shooter. He shot like 40-something%. He averaged like 20-something points in the playoffs. He's a great player. He would definitely fit right along with our starting lineup. You could insert him right at shooting guard. That would be another great trade for the Celtics. And I think it would benefit the Mavericks too, because they get a solid center that doesn't really need to score that much. He does his role, and that's it. And then they get obviously a second option for Luka Doncic to score. But let's move on to the last trade of the day. The last trade of the day I got is Kemba Walker, Tristan Thompson, Romeo Langford, and Jabari Parker going to the Indiana Pacers for Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, and TJ McConnell. Now, this is my favorite trade out of all of them. We finally get a solid big man, a tall big man to begin with, who can shoot and play defense. We get a great point guard in return, only on a $20 million contract. Malcolm Brogdon's a great point guard. I feel like he has all-star potential too. And then we get a solid backup point guard in TJ McConnell. And I feel like this is a good trade for both sides. The Pacers get rid of Miles Turner, which they don't want next to Sabonis. We get rid of Kemba, and we get in return Malcolm Brogdon. And they get Tristan Thompson, which can be a backup center to Sabonis or start with him because he doesn't need the ball. They get Romeo Langford, which is a solid young defending shooting guard. I think this is a solid trade for both teams. Obviously, some Pacers fans would be like, oh, we're giving up too much. But you got to make the money work, so somehow. I feel like this is a great trade for the Celtics. This would be the best trade they could do. So, Brad Stevens, if you somehow see this, think about doing this trade. This is a great trade. But that's all I got for y'all today. Let me know which trade y'all like the most. And if you think any of these will actually happen in real life. Comment below who you think Kemba Walker will be traded for in real life. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, leave a thumbs up, turn on that post notification bell. Now I'm out, bruh.